Right, professional registration, your journey. And before we go any further, most people have no idea of the value that PEI membership and professional engineering brings to their own personal lives. And because of that, there's no wonder so few involved with engineering are members of professional engineering institutions. And hopefully, I'm going to show you why that should change. So we're thinking at this moment about the wider population, everybody. And I would argue that the greater the percentage of engineering activities being conducted to the UK standard of professional engineering and competence and commitment, UK spec, the greater the chance of securing higher living standards and economic growth. And that's why I say it affects everybody, and people are missing out because we're not there. And I'll go through and try and explain that. But first, just take it that that claim is right. So how are we going to get all engineering activities conducted in accordance with the UK spec? And we need for that everyone involved in engineering holding professional engineering institution PEI membership. And I'll go further on that later. And everyone in positions of engineering responsibility, we need them registered with the Engineering Council. And we'll look at that as we go along as well. So, everyone involved in engineering needs to be a PEI member, I am claiming. And why is that? Well, the big one is we want everybody involved in engineering not only technically qualified with a technical experience, they need to be operating to a decent standard. And one of those key parts is operating to the PEI Code of Conduct, the Professional Code of Conduct. And all the PEI Codes of Conduct are based on the Statement of Ethical Principles for the Engineering Profession, which is produced by, it's a joint statement made by the Engineering Council and the Royal Academy of Engineering. And you've got your technical side there, and you've got the way we operate and the standard of way we treat people and such like the other side. Also, we've got member at CPD. Let's just keeping up to date at this time to save time, but there's a lot of good reasons for that in much more detail. And I've said everybody involved. Our first speaker, as I understood it, was a lawyer who is involved with engineering and needs to understand the parameters that engineering operates in. That's the sort of person we need as associate members, so that they are tied into the Code of Conduct. They're tied into doing CPD from the position of, I've got people I'm working with in engineering. What is engineering trying to deliver? So it's bringing the two together. And then you've got the people who are doing the engineering. They may be starting out training. They still need to be a member. So, and we've got apprentice, student, and then we've got the ones who are doing it, member and fellow of SOE. But what we're really trying to do is, it's not, you want anybody, if they're a buyer, a lawyer who's involved with the engineering, we need them in for society to get the best out of engineering. And then I did say everyone in positions of engineering responsibility needs to be registered with the Engineering Council. And that is, it confirms that the individual has attained and is operating at the UK spec, the UK standard for professional engineering competence and commitment. I keep repeating that because it is a UK standard. It's all right somebody saying, I'm competent. Competent to what level? And if we know that all engineering in the UK or wherever is being done to that level, that standard, that gives employers, government, and society in general confidence that the engineering is being conducted for them to that standard. There is a standard there. And if we just think it further, if the UK PLC engineering is not being conducted at that standard, which is an international standard, how can we compete? We need it up there so that UK engineering can compete worldwide, and therefore economic growth, higher living standards. But what is it that registration for those who are doing taking responsibility for engineering, how does it actually work in adding value? The first one, which I was quite grateful to our first speaker, it adds surety to high-risk engineering projects. You've got a project, there's a load of risks in there. Why do you want to have even more risks by knowing that the person responsible for the engineering on this is talking back to you, and the person with a high risk, is not that person who's responsible, has not proven that they meet the internationally recognised UK standard. Why take on that extra risk? Efficient proof of competence and standards with standards and regulations. How do you prove that your employee is competent? Simple. They register with the Engineering Council as a competent person. Done. Sorted. It really is useful if you want efficient and lower risk recruitment for positions of engineering responsibility. If you advertise for a post and say you shall be registered at the appropriate level, then you've cut out, so you've reduced your risk, because you know that these people, the ones you're going to interview, have already proven that they are operating at the UK standard. You're taking an extra risk if the person has not proven that. I'm not saying the person will operate at that, you're just reducing the risk, and therefore you get a more efficient. You also, how do you check up on all the qualifications and such like? How do you check up on CPD? This says they're doing it, they've got it. Efficient retention and utilisation of good talent. Well, first of all, if you're an employer and you've said, well, I'm only taking people who are meeting the UK standard, you're only talking to at the higher level of talent. But if you've got people coming through, I mentioned apprentices right at the beginning as members of SOE and such like. If they're working their way through to these standards and you're helping them get to those standards. It may be that you can simply say, well, you can start with us, but to take a point of responsibility, you will be registered. That's a clear, so you're going to weasel out people who aren't prepared to read that standard, and it gives you more strength. The other thing is CPD. If you embrace it, people are committed to doing CPD. As an organisation, what do you want their CPD to do, linking into their engineering? Both parties can agree and get a greater bond and strength together, because you've got the employee who's bringing new ideas in. Let's put it lose that. So you now, the employer depends on them, but you can reward them for that. So both sides win. And this is the one that a particular slide on the first speaker that I picked up on. Efficient and more robust protection from potential liabilities and risks to business reputation. We're involved with operations engineering. And as was explained on the first speaker, things do go wrong. And when things go wrong, people get injured. People lose their lives. If you get involved in that area, as was being warned about, you are going to end up in court. Now, that could be the employer or the employee. And one of the quick questions that's going to come up is, well, were these people competent to do this work? And the employer can say, all my staff who are in positions of engineering responsibility are registered with the Engineering Council. As competent, they meet the UK standard of competence, engineering competence. That, I'm not going to say that means you're off scot-free, but you've put yourself in a much better position than if you weren't able to say that. That as an employer or the employee. So that works there. And then the last one, with all these things coming through, is increased client confidence. So as a company, you're more likely to win contracts if people trust you. If you've had a big horrible incident, but it says, well, actually all the people there were competent, that's a much better position than it coming out and saying, well, there's been this accident and there wasn't a single person who was seen as competent there. It's all about getting yourself to a position where people can say they've done what they can to get the highest standards. I'm prepared to go for them. And if you're going abroad for work, or I'm placed here now, you need to be able to say, I've got people who are responsible for the engineering. They all meet the standard for competence. It just gives you a much better position. You win more work, the country wins more work, brings more money in, economic growth, and of course, the fact that the things last longer, don't break down so often. There isn't the break. People are being treated fairly. They're not overpaying for their maintenance or engineering because we're operating to the codes. Living standards rise. So, what I'm really saying is, if we want to support higher living standards and economic growth, let's get everybody involved with engineering, members of PEIs such as the SOE, so that they are signed up to the ethical principles for the engineering profession. Even if they're not engineers, they're involved with it, so they're doing that part. And the CPD goes on for everybody as well. Then we move over so we've got everybody involved, and those who are taking positions of engineering responsibility, we need to know that they are operating to the UK standard of professional engineering competence and commitment, UK spec, and we know that if these people are there, because they will have one of the three, EngTech, iEng, or CEng. And to get those, you've got to be a member of a PEI. As to the SOE, that means you've got to be a member or a fellow in your abilities within the SOE organisation. So that's a reinforcement. Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I think it's a really good point you made about competence and if something goes wrong. And I can say from personal experience that having when something does go wrong, having that person professionally registered is a massive advantage in a court of law, because you don't have to explain any more about the competence of that person. They met a standard, a UK standard for competence and commitment, and it's really important. There's a couple of comments online. You say everyone in positions of engineering responsibility need to be registered with the Engineering Council. Are you suggesting this should be a legal requirement?
No, I'm not. And it's a personal thing, this, but we're looking for competitive advantage here. So we want people who, the firms who buy into it. If it becomes a tick box exercise, you could actually devalue the whole thing. And if it's a legal requirement, it'll quickly become a tick box. It worries me that. Also, I fear that if we get legislators involved, we'll quickly get down to job A is chartered, job B is incorporated, job C is Eng Tech. That's not, and when and you know, suddenly then companies will start to say, oh, well, I don't care what the job is, I want the best. I want CEng. And what use is a CEng for a job that the job parameter fits Eng Tech? So it frightens me. Let's go for the competitive advantage of we want to grow our businesses, and this helps us grow our businesses.
Yeah. Another one. What would you do to make sure that all PEI members fully understand their obligations for doing CPD and adhering to the code of conduct?
Yeah, if we're going to start saying that people are operating to the standards and that they are doing CPD, if it turns out they're not, when there's a sort of test case situation, and we have not taken action, again, we're devaluing it. We're setting, what we're saying here is a standard you can trust. So we've got to be very proactive in making sure that people realize that we are proactive in ensuring only those retain their status, and this includes PEI membership as well as registration, if they are complying and meeting the requirements of it. So it basically, if I take a leaf out of the insurance industry, where I know they're equivalent of PEI, they have a magazine, and on the back page, they list the people who've been struck off for not meeting the standards. So everybody knows they're no longer equivalent registered. So it's from looking at the insurance industry, I think we've really got to be hard, because the insurance industry is hard. Admittedly, it's usually financial fraud that's going on, but it gives you the idea where we're coming from.
There was another question. I'll open it out to the room in a moment, but the UK spec is currently under review. Would you like to see it changed in any particular way?
I'm not qualified to comment on that. I'm happy that there is a UK spec and that the Engineering Council and the PEIs have come up with a set of requirements. There's a whole list of things, and it ties in with the Statement of Ethical Principles as well. It all hangs together. If people are seeing a place for improving it, great. I personally wouldn't do it. What does worry me is I've been involved with groups, well, looking at how do you implement or publicize the Statement of Ethical Principles. So it's both. And a lot of time people start to go into what's ethical, as like, which countries should you work in? Which countries shouldn't you? Whereas at the moment, the code is written, and I would hope that the spec it is at the moment, and I would hate it to get to a point where it's moving away from this is how you treat somebody, this is how you ensure, well, sorry, you will treat people fairly, you will look at safety, you will do this, you will do that. They're quite positives. Something to say, you will not work in this country, you will not get involved with, I'm going to say tobacco, you will not get involved with the oil industry. Dangerous, very dangerous. And that's my big worry.
Any questions?
Yeah, just picking up on your terminology, when you talk about positions of professional responsibility. Now that's an interesting topic in itself. It's been discussed at Engineering Council, the interpretation of UK spec as well, about what is a designer. And both are exactly the same thing. It's anybody that makes a decision. If you have to make a decision based on your engineering knowledge, then you are a designer and you're also a person of engineering responsibility. So it's a much broader church than we may think.
I would agree 100% with that. And it's competent. And if you're not competent, you need to be working under the supervision of a competent person, the trainee and such like. And that's why I hadn't sort of said, or got upset about people saying, oh, everybody's got to be a CEng. You've got to be, if it's Eng Tech, it's somebody who's responsible for applying proven engineering techniques and procedures. Now, it's quite broad, but it's different to an IEng, which is responsible for managing and maintaining engineering applications and technologies. I think as the employer, you've really got to look at what am I after? And do I want a CEng who's responsible for developing solutions to complex engineering problems when I'm running some old kit and I want it to keep running? And so I think you've got to look at it and go, I don't want government saying, oh, it's an Eng Tech, that job. That the person who's running the business needs to look at it and go, that's the sort of person I want in that sort of area. And that's why, again, earlier, I sort of throw the wobbler about defining what jobs can be done and legal requirement.
Good points. Firstly, the key thing about registration is someone independent is looking at you, and that hasn't come out in this. It's a key message that an independent party is using the spec to assess your competence and then determine where you fit on that range from Eng Tech to chartered. The other thing to mention also is that there is going to be change coming around all of this in due time. And a knock-on effect of that is, reactions to Grenfell. And there may be predefined, you need to do the following roles will require certain levels of registration. So that will come, but, and it's coming quite quickly. So just be mindful of all those things. But it's about independent assessment of your capability working in organisations. The only other ideal thing is if the companies took the lead in making sure their people need to be registered, that would really open this up and get more people recognised. And that's really what we want to try and do, is get the companies to see the benefit of having their registered people in their organisation. So the independence assessment, they fit nicely together, but we often forget those.
Totally agree. But my experience of dealing with government bodies when they're trying to bring legislation is they have seen it seen the issue on the television, and they come up with solutions. I've in an power industry, legislative particularly, I've been talking to the regulator, and they were bringing legislation in where certain generators who were licensed had to do it. And I said to them, well, that it's nothing to do with licenses, it's to do with people who are connected to the system. And they said, well, it's the same thing. So two separate pieces of legislation. And these are the companies I know that you're upset about, and not one of them is a licensee. But you're bringing the law in only to licensees. So it always worries me that if you get government near it, rather than the people who understand it, you've got a problem.
I think in this room, some of what Gary mentioned feeds into the converted, because the Bureau Engineer Surveyor members in general have worked for organisations that can demonstrate competence after the fact. The building industry are in meltdown because they don't even understand that at the moment. Right. The built environment are struggling to get their heads around that going forward.
Yeah, the message, we've got to get the message out though. It's all right talking in this room, but we've got to, and that's the first step, as you said, let's get the employers, but we actually need to get the whole of society so people say, I want that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.
So for those of you that don't know me, I know quite a lot of you actually in the room. I am the CEO of SOE. I want to take a few minutes of your time just to talk a bit more about membership and professional standards. Ian, I think, opened that pathway quite nicely, but also to explain the benefits of what we offer and to help you line up for professional membership. So engineering sits at the heart of everything, and it can be from transport to infrastructure to safety, resilience, and sustainability. But engineering excellence isn't just about technology, it's about competence, professionalism, standards, and people. That's where SOE plays a vital role. And you must be wondering, who are SOE to those of you that are not members? The Society of Operations Engineers is a not-for-profit professional engineering institution, and we are dedicated to support engineers and technicians working in operational and safety-critical environments. SOE represents professional sectors across all different types of engineering. That can be plant equipment, asset management, maintenance, compliance, safety, engineering, right through to automotive, transport, logistics, and fleet. Everything we do is centred on raising standards, supporting careers, and protecting the public through professional engineering practice. Our website acts as the gateway to professional registration, learning and development resources, events, and member support. I want to talk to you a bit more on what Ian said earlier about why professional membership matters. Engineering today is more complex and more regulated than ever. We spoke about the Grenfell Tower earlier as one example. Employers, regulators, and the public need confidence that engineers are competent and current, working to professional standards, committed to ethical practice, continuously developing their skills. SOE membership provides that confidence. It's recognition that an individual takes their profession seriously and is committed to excellence. SOE membership formally recognises an individual's experience, competence, and professionalism. It also enhances their own professional credibility, career progression, and employability. Membership shows commitment not just as one job, but to the engineering profession as a whole. Professional registration. Now, Ian touched on this earlier. So we go from engineering technician, incorporated engineer, and chartered engineer. SOE is particularly well placed to support engineers in applied operational and safety critical roles, offering clear guidance and one-to-one support, as well as practical assessment routes. Professional registration provides internationally recognised status and demonstrates verified competence. SOE places strong emphasis on continued professional development, CPD. Webinars, seminars, and conferences, CPD guidance, and useful recording tools, practical role-relevant learning. This supports engineers to remain competent, compliant, and confident in a rapidly changing industry. Members have access to trusted technical information, including industry guidance and technical articles, best practice on safety, maintenance, and compliance, updates on policy, legislation, and standards. SOE also provides a professional home for engineers who often work behind the scenes unnoticed in very critical roles. Our membership offers a network of peers, someone you can talk to and compare notes to, opportunities to then share your experiences, professional support, and belonging. Many members value the sense of being represented, understood, and supported. Benefits for employers and organisations as well as that. Employers, regulators, and the public need confidence that engineers are competent and current, working to professional standards, committed to ethical practices, and continuing developing their skills. I also want to say to you that we are delighted to have Nick Cox with us here in the SOE offices. Nick Cox is our Membership Professional Standards Manager, and he can talk to you about your membership options, your professional registration routes, your career development and CPD, and how SOE can support you as an organisation. And those of you that are online, please do reach out and contact us directly. Whether you're clear about your next step or simply starting to explore, professional registration and membership is a great opportunity for an informal, practical conversation. Please do take a few minutes to come and talk to us tonight or reach out online. We're here to help you. To conclude, the Society of Operations Engineers exists to support our engineers and make systems work safely, professionally and reliably. I encourage you to reach out to us and talk to us today. Thank you very much. I'd like to conclude this evening's seminar. So thank you all very much for those that have joined online, and apologies again for the technical difficulties you've had. We are recording this event and we will upload it shortly afterwards. Thank you to everyone in the room. This has been a great success and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Good night.